Welcome, everyone. This right here, right now, is the joy of being a live stream coming to you live from Brooklyn, New York. Folks, I'm so excited to be here with you. It's an exciting stream. It's the Monday stream. And if we can, we're going to have a sneak peek of our favorite little puppy, Sela, which I've discovered that people are less excited about than I am. So we'll bring her out at some point maybe, but I've realized that no one's really going to think she's as cute as I am. So that's the way it is. And so you'll get to see her and say hello. As folks are rolling in, let us know where you're coming from. It's nice to see you here. Nice to see that folks are gathering. And if you're watching this on playback, as many people have informed me they do, it's great to see you here. I'm very excited. We're going to be switching up our themes today. We've been doing practices around gone for a while and things passing away as they come and then disappear. And today we're going to be actually talking about things as they are experienced instantaneously. So that is what we'll be talking about. So, folks, we're going to do about a half-hour meditation, and then we're going to chit-chat. I have a question that came in from someone that I'd love to answer here. I also think I might talk about a little bit of a problem that's arisen, and I'd be curious what your thoughts are around that. Interesting little problem. So, we're going to meditate for 25 minutes, so finding a nice comfortable position that you can maintain for the duration of the sit. Let's see here. Okay. When you're ready, just settling in. So we're going to meditate for about 25 minutes. If you've never meditated for this long before, don't worry, you can do it. I believe in you. And if anyone is new to meditation and is joining us now, let us know. What's your practice like? What are the challenges that tend to arise for you? And whatever challenges arise, just know that that's normal, that's natural, that happens to everyone when you begin to meditate. So we'll meditate for 25 minutes and then we'll go to Q&A and see what your meditation was like. And we'll go from there. Love to hear from you. And folks, if you're just joining, we're going to be meditating, answering any questions, reports you have, and then we're going to be answering a question from someone who wrote in about the death of a friend and what techniques and tools you could use basically when tragedy strikes, which it will for everyone. Spoiler alert. So that's about it. So when you're ready, finding a nice comfortable position that you can maintain for the duration of the sit, we'll be practicing in stillness, meaning we're going to avoid any instinctive impulse to move the body in any way. And let's begin. Beginning by taking a few comfortable deep breaths and just feeling the body rise and fall. Meditation is generally about simplifying our experience and then soaking into that simplified world and finding the detail and nuance. And so the way we're going to begin this practice is by allowing the eyes to close if they're not already, or allowing the eyes to rest on a single point if we'd like to keep them open. And we'll start by systematically relaxing the body. Each time I mention a part of the body, see if you can find a way to relax it. Often this means letting it succumb to gravity. So starting at the top of the head, relax the brow, relaxing the muscles behind the eyes, allowing the eyes to drop back just a millimeter, falling back into the skull. Letting that relaxation spread to the face. Relaxing the back of the tongue, also letting it fall back just slightly. Relaxing the jaw and allowing it to go slack. No need to hold the mouth closed. Relaxing the neck and the shoulders. The upper arms, elbows, forearms, wrists, and relaxing the hands. Allowing a little bit of space between each of the knuckles, each of the bones of the hands. Letting go of any attempt to control the breath, just letting the body breathe as it will. Noticing the natural tightening and relaxing of the upper chest and upper back as the breath comes and goes. The in-breath stretches the chest. And the out-breath relaxes the chest, allowing it to fall towards gravity. Relaxing the belly and the lower back. Relaxing the hips and the upper legs. The knees and calves. Relaxing the ankles and relaxing the feet. And then feeling relaxation throughout the entire body. Everywhere that's neutral or pleasant. Gathering together all sensation in the body as one large pool, not worrying about any particular detail, just a collection of all sensation. Letting the container of the mind be large, holding all of this material together. And without letting our attention shrink down in any way, within this field of sensation of the body, simply begin to know some of the detail of the breath. Again, no need to cut out every other sensation, just letting the breath be known, even if it's just slightly known in the periphery. In this way, finding a balance between these two. A large awareness of body sensation and the simple detail of the breath. And each time we get distracted, knowing that this is quite natural. There's no need to push anything away, just rebalancing our attention and awareness on the sensations of the breath and the body. And so just playing this simple game. Knowing the body. Allowing a little bit of detail of breath sensations. Knowing that at times we'll be pulled away and distracted. And the system may judge this as bad. Annoying. You might call it distraction, but just coming back to this simple game. How long can we stay with this balance between attention and awareness? Distractions aren't a problem. They're not something to get rid of. They're just nature. So returning to this balance over and over. Exploring the nature of cultivating a mind of balance. And now we're going to make a slight shift in the practice, letting go of any particular focus on the breath or any other sensation. We're going to begin to track any time we experience anything that is new, any change, any sensation that has arisen in this particular moment. And much of meditation is noticing sensations which are new. We're simply going to see if we can contact that instant that something changes, that comes into the present moment experience. So anytime a sensation comes into your awareness, anytime your attention or awareness moves from one part of a sensation to another or anywhere at all, you're just going to note this new quality, this new changing experience. What is just now appearing to the body-mind? Each time we notice something that is new or has changed, in the mind we can simply use the label new. Saying this label, soaking into the experience. If it feels like too many things are arising to use the label, we can average it out. We can take 5, 10, 50 new things and simply label them as new. The mind is pulled towards novelty, towards contrast. So if we allow it, the mind will just continuously observe that which is new. The glittering formation of the present moment over and over again. The mind produces mental audio or a mental image, or if we're distracted and we come back, knowing that this set of sensations is also new. It's the first time in this particular moment that it's arisen. You may notice that staying with this practice can feel a little invigorating, the constant brightness of something new appearing over and over again. And you can feel free to tap into that energy, that surprise factor. That kind of glittering. In this way, we're shrinking down our experience of the present moment just to the instant of the arising of experience. Seeing if we can relax, not needing to chase new experiences. Just letting all of the little bits of new material arise. If distraction arises, noticing the moment when you recognize this new instant. And so we're effectively filtering out all experience aside from this instant of new material arising over and over. If there ends up being so much of it that it's pointless to individually label or even track, we can begin to connect with the flavor. The overall taste of this new experience, and staying with that. And staying with the practice, staying in stillness, we're going to introduce a little bit of new material by arranging the body differently. And by this I mean to allow a tiny bit of light to enter the eyes, noticing all the new visual material as it arises. Eventually allowing the eyes to rest on one point as they fully open. Noticing that each time awareness shifts, each time the eye moves even in the slightest, each time another sensation arises, every one of these changes is new. And as we sit here with our eyes open, as we do many times in our day, just noticing that this period of transition, this is our teacher, showing us how we might bring this practice into every aspect of our lives. Okay, folks. Oh, good. The chat is working. What was that like? What was your experience just now? It's an interesting practice, I find. Continuously reconnecting with this experience of the new. It's just interesting that the mind is able to do that. We sort of underestimate what the mind can do. And one of the things it can do is just notice this instantaneous change from moment to moment. So let me know what that meditation was like for you, what happened, and what do you like now? Nick says, popping in, welcome by the way, Nick, popping in halfway from the office. This felt more beginner friendly, so I had an easier time staying with it than gone and such. There's always something new. Yeah, exactly. It's interesting because I was thinking about the last meditations that we're doing in this one, and interestingly, I wanted to do a series on Gone for a while, so I was re-recording those, and then halfway through doing that series, I realized, oh wait, I want to do a series on New to lead people into Gone. So you're you're getting the sort of short end of the stick here, Nick, because this is the introduction to the practices we were doing the last few weeks. So we're sort of going backwards in time, but hopefully I'm glad that you enjoyed this introduction. And if ever you decide to go backwards and listen to this one and the next 6 meditations again, and then go back to the Gone ones, hopefully it'll be a nice smooth transition into the Gone. Also, I'm glad that was fun. And anyone else, if you want to give a report or if you want to chat on our Discord, I think it's been pretty quiet on the Discord. Yeah, exactly. Already confused, so why not some more? Well, it's also worth noting, Nick, that you've heard me say this a bunch of times, but in this live stream, we're recording I'm re-recording the entire library, so it's the levels that we're at are going to be completely, different depending on particular day. So I try to mix it up so it's not just all like advanced stuff. And that said, we're building a library that's for every level of student, ideally. So there's going to be times when it's going to be very strange, which is always fun. Yeah. So, okay. So I wanted to answer a question that came from someone. Let me pull this up. Someone emailed a question. Thought it was a great question. Here we are. Okay. The question is this. So someone emailed and said, do you have any kind of guided meditations, or is anyone else talking about dealing with the death of a close friend when you don't have anything else to turn to? And in particular, having spoke with this person in the past, they have talked about that basically everyone has these tendency to turn towards certain vices, and if you're trying to not turn to that vice, it lowers your toolkit, or it reduces your toolkit. And we all have our different things that we turn to. Some people it's shopping, some people it's drinking or using drugs or whatever. We'll all have our individual things, and typically over time we try to reduce the harmfulness of each one of those things. But what do you do when you're trying to not turn to one of those vices that you're trying to step away from? And the first thing I wanted to say is that just to acknowledge that people passing away and great challenge and difficulty is really part of everyone's life. My father passed away a few years ago, and the grieving process is not only essential, but it's very strange, and it doesn't look like what we think it's going to look like. Typically, people have this idea that, it's sort of like very linear, like a video game. You go through one level, then the next, and the next, and then you beat the final boss, which is maybe a big cry, and then you're all done. But it's actually much more like a situation where it's one level, and then you're bounced to the big boss level, and then you're bounced back to level 3, then to the boss, and then back to level 1. And you actually don't get to pick how long it lasts. And typically, my experience is that there'll be a sort of major period of mourning. So let's say someone passes away, or there's a breakup or something like that, or even moving. Sometimes moving can actually be one of the really hard things for people. So there'll be a period of mourning that'll be really intense, and then it'll sort of die away. It'll fade away to some degree. And the mind will tend to say, oh, thank God that's finally over. I finally feel relief. And then all of a sudden, X long, a week later, half a week later, whatever, we start to feel kind of yucky again. And we're thinking, what is this about? Why do I feel, angry or sad, or any of the sort of general experiences of grief? And we don't think, well, this must be due to this thing that happened before, because that's over. That is done with. So now what is this all about? And the net result is actually that it is the same thing, and we just don't get to pick when it ends. So it can actually be resolved or feel resolved. It can feel like we've gained acceptance, and then it all comes back. And it comes back in different layers, and it can come back years later. But what I find is that typically for me about 3 rounds of that, it being there and then disappearing and then being there and then disappearing. Around then it gets, sort of reduced enough that I can kind of get back to my ordinary life and I don't feel it affecting me quite as much. But passing of someone is just something that the system has to process. So then the question comes to, what about substances? What about using things that cause us harm in our lives that we're trying not to do? Well, when we're connected with someone, you can imagine one of these old-timey, switchboards. I don't know if you've ever seen these pictures in the olden days of there's someone sitting at a switchboard and they're making all these patch cords to one person to talk to another, that kind of thing. So you can imagine these 2 switchboards connected with each other. And this is the same thing for a breakup. You have these 2 switchboards, they're connected with each other, and then they separate and they have all these dangling cords in the air. And those cords are all the places that they were connected. And what happens is we see something that reminds us of the person, and the signal travels down the end of the cord. It hits nothing, and it sort of zaps back, and we get hit with this sadness or depression or being pulled into something, a feeling of overwhelm. And so what needs to happen over time is each of those cords, those connected places, needs to connect to something else in order for us to finally move through the mourning process. Those connections are going to find something to connect to. The system has to regulate itself. So maybe it'll connect to a donut, right? It's like, well, this will solve this problem. It tries to connect. It feels sad. It plugs itself into a donut, and suddenly it feels better for a minute. But there's no real connection there, and it doesn't actually resolve this issue. So, well, what does it do? It plugs into another donut or another drink or whatever it is. And because of that, it needs to, it just won't really resolve. It will just sort of stretch out the mourning process, and it'll be more and more painful. So what we actually need to do, and we're hardwired to need this, is that we need to actually connect with other people. We need to connect with other human beings. We're hardwired to process our emotions with other human beings. This is the sort of nature of being a human. So these different connections need to reconnect with basically other people. And so we can talk about what's happening with us emotionally, the challenges, the difficulties. And over time, the connections become solid enough that when we have those feelings and then we call someone or we talk to someone or we connect with people, it no longer feels like we're getting zapped back. In terms of a breakup, what can happen is we can reconnect with the person. Like, oh, let's just fool around a little bit, or let's just talk a little bit on the phone. All those connections get reconnected and ripped out again, and then reconnected and ripped out because you're not with the person. So you connect and then rip and connect and rip. And this sort of, I guess to extend the metaphor, starts to fray the lines and makes it much harder to connect with other people because they're sort of like getting gnarled and bent and twisted and that kind of thing. So reconnecting with that person feels good in the moment, but it doesn't actually resolve the issue. So that's why often if I'm working with somebody and they have a hard breakup, one of the recommendations that I received when I had a really hard breakup when I was younger, really intense, I'll tell that story one day, but it involves like police and all sorts of stuff. So the recommendation that I received was to actually not have any contact with the person for between a third and a half of the time that we had been together, which was like really, I was like, but then they'll just be someone that I, used to know. And the, person I was talking to who's a therapist said, yeah, that's the idea. They're not like a, loved one anymore. They're just someone you used to be connected with, which is very hard because it feels like, well, where do I get that connection, that love? And that's the idea, is to reconnect with other people, other support layers. Now, here's the interesting thing when we bring in substances. Let's take just alcohol for instance. That's something. I mean, substances and alcohol and that kind of thing. I have roughly about 16 years sober, coming I think February 16, and the thing is that when we become dependent on a substance, it's actually that what we've done is plug a bunch of those cords into that substance, and we get relief. We get a sense of freedom. We get a sense of connection, a sense of camaraderie. All of those things often through the substance. And at some point, the substance sort of stops working. It's no longer helping us. It's no longer making us feel those connections. But because the system is so trained to plug back into those, it keeps trying to plug in and trying to plug in, and it's sort of lost. So you're talking about 2 situations here. If you're trying to stop using a substance and you have someone pass away, 2 situations where the system needs to connect. and we need to rewire those connections over and over again. And so it's even more of a need to reach out to people, to connect, to ask for support and those kind of things. The challenge is, if we've trained ourselves to use substances as a way to connect, we have a hard time connecting with other people. It's scary. It's vulnerable. I heard a really excellent definition of addiction, which is from a friend of mine, another teacher named George Haas. And he said that addiction is the illusion that we can find fulfillment alone. That's really powerful to me. The idea that we could find fulfillment alone is the definition of addiction. And one of the things I find, or I've been thinking about a lot recently, is this relationship of fear and safety. And I don't know why it never struck me for the longest time that fear is a reduction in a sense of safety. Of course, that makes perfect sense, but somehow my mind didn't connect that. And of course, I'm well aware of my body-mind experiencing fear all the time. Like here, I'm talking into a camera to someone who, I know people listen to this, I know people are here with us live, but the system can become afraid, like nervous or that kind of thing, or I'm going into a new situation, meeting new people. Fear can arise in the system. Not necessarily me feeling fear, but the system feeling fear. What I'm now paying attention to is, okay, fear is arising. Actually, what's happening is my sense of safety is going down and crossing the sort of threshold. So it's really helpful for me because I realize, well, what would make me feel safe in this situation? I don't know, maybe just having a beverage. Like, feeling safe is a very sort of amorphous thing, but I can have a sense of I would feel a little more safe if I, felt my body right now. I'm thinking about the general experience of fear that might be arising right now. It's like, okay, and feel my body and allow that sensation to be there, physically allowing. Okay, I could reach out to people and say hello and connect and these kind of things. I actually would feel safe with that. So looking for places where you can be connected and to feel safe. And know that there's a self that can be terrified. They can, nothing's right, I'm scared, nothing's okay. But know that that's just a self. And there's another self that wants to feel connected, wants to be supported by other people. And so we sort of have to intentionally cultivate that self over and over again. And then that self begins to take over. And then we, in the end up with a supportive community of people who care about us. So hopefully that's a good answer to your question. And of course, feel free at any time to ask any other questions. It's great to connect. All right, thanks so much. We have Chloe joined us. Welcome, Chloe. It's so nice to see you here. Let's see, is there anything in the chat other than? Okay, so let's see. We have some stuff going back. Okay, pop it in already. Okay, Nick says, going back, says the hunger for novelty is really strong in the mind. To stay with one practice long enough is a big challenge. Yeah, and that's just the general mind training. That's exactly what we're doing. Is just, and one reason I like this practice around new is that it tickles that fancy. Okay, this is new, this is new, this is new, and so there's partially that experience of desire for novelty. It'll emphasize that. So that's one of the nice things about that. Okay, we have a comment here from Chloe. Chloe, if we train ourselves to internalize the positive qualities of mind that arise from external relationships, doesn't that build the kind of resilience without external conditions we're looking for in meditation? Okay, it's a layered question, so I'm going to go over it a couple times. Ideally, we would have good relationships and have inner resilience. So that last sentence is basically where I'll land. That's exactly the case. It is ideal that we have good relationships and we have, inner resilience. Exactly. I think the thing that is often novel for people, especially in, our current climate or current culture, is that the sense of inner resilience is actually dependent on our relationship with other people. And it's basically, we've had a sort of flawed model of psychology kind of since Freud, or I don't want to blame it on Freud. It's just a very old model. Maybe you could say since Descartes, right? But who knows? Whatever the origin is, we can talk about that at a different time. The premise being that the primary unit of psychology is self. If we look at how the human mind is created and structured, the idea that the self is the singular thing, and then the world is sort of built around that unit in a way. When actually newer science and newer psychology is teaching us that actually the primary unit of psychology is the bond, is the connection, is the interrelationship between us and someone else, a caretaker, for instance. And that's typically where we learn those connections, is from a primary caretaker. So that's the primary unit of psychology. And then from there, the individual is the exploratory part of that psychology. But that individual only feels safe to explore if it knows it can return to an experience of a bond. Now, that bond does become internalized over time. And then there's a sense, okay, I can explore and come back. And there's always a sense of safety there. But what we're experiencing is that the bond is actually something that's required for freedom. If you're familiar, you may already know that I'm talking basically about attachment theory, and that each of these experiences of feeling okay exploring the world are related to and directly sort of springing out of this theory around attachment theory. And I'll give you a very brief, I don't want to say summary of attachment theory. That's not really what this is. This is sort of the 4 types of people that attachment theory would sort of tend to categorize. So there's someone who in early childhood had a safe caretaker who also allowed them to explore, so they could come back to safety and explore in the world. That's what I'm trying to create for our puppy, right? We want our puppy to explore, and we want our puppy to know that when it comes back, there'll always be safety. So that is someone who's going to experience that the world is can meet its needs. If it goes out into the world, it will meet its needs, and they can also they trust themselves. So trusting self, world can meet my needs. Now, the rest of it is combinations of lesser or greater of those qualities. You could say the next person would be someone who feels that they can meet their or that they trust themselves, but the world cannot meet their needs. Right? So this person is going to rely heavily on self and think that the world is just unreliable. I don't want to have anything to do with the world. This person will tend to be dismissive. They'll tend to think that they don't need anybody. And if this characteristic goes far enough, you have someone who's entirely narcissistic. Like they don't need anyone at all. They don't, nothing matters, and it's just them that's the most important. If you have ever seen Mad Men, Don Draper is a good example of this. The current president of the United States is a really extreme example of this. Someone who it so deeply doesn't need anyone that people are just completely interchangeable. He just throw anyone under the bus as long as it was to benefit him. And often, people who have this in a really deep way are very okay with like breaking any laws or boundaries because they can't trust the world. So they need to just make up whatever they can just to survive. So the childhood of those folks is going to be something like they had a caretaker who they just could not rely on very consistently. They just was never there. They would just cry and cry and cry. The caretaker would never come. And eventually they just shut down and say, I don't need anyone. I'm going to rely on myself. They're really good at exploring the world, but they're not really good at sharing that with other people. Then you can imagine you have someone who feels that they can't trust themselves, but the world will meet their needs. And this is the anxious type, the person who's like, I need help. Who's going to help me? Will you help me? And you can tell when you're interacting with this kind of person because they will often they're so anxious that they're like, can I call you? Can I talk to you? Can I tell you about my problems? And you'll get the email from them and it'll be like, 1,000 paragraphs, like to explain one thing and that kind of thing. We all have these impulses within us. These aren't like psychopathologies or anything, but if you ever texted someone that you're really interested in or something and and you're like, oh, they haven't texted back. Like, oh, what is, that's that same impulse, but we're talking about it, we're talking about it on a spectrum. So we'll say that's the exact thing we're talking about, all the way to the point where, actually was it? No, I was dating someone once and like my phone had died. And when I replugged my phone in and got a little power, there was this huge thing of like, hey, I'm doing this. Like, where are you? Why aren't you responding? All the way down to like, please don't do this to me, to like, I hate you. I can't believe. And it was just like my phone had died for 3 hours or whatever. So that's that preoccupied. And the world will fix me. I can't trust myself, but someone in the world will fix me. That's the preoccupied. That's going to tend to be someone who had a childhood where the caretaker actually was available, but in a very inconsistent way. So they're always like, where are you? Where are you? I know you can meet my needs, but where are you? So they never really relied on themselves. So they're really less likely to explore the world, much more likely to sort of want the world to be sort of given to, or shown to them, and they're sort of can be afraid and that kind of thing. Then there's one that's actually kind of the most problematic and difficult, which is that they don't feel like they can trust themselves, and they don't feel like the world will meet their needs. And there's just like, and they often feel stuck. And that's often people who tend to feel like they are just completely frozen. They can't make a decision. They can't really lean towards something or away. They just sort of end up stuck and kind of catatonic. And just so you know, that these are normal categories, is that I tend to lean towards the preoccupied, meaning I don't feel like I can trust myself, but someone in the world is going to fix my problems. And Raquel tends to tend towards the fearful avoidant, which is the last one, which is the sort of stuck quality. Now, Raquel's getting a PhD and doing wonderfully, and is loved quite a bit by by lots of people, and people in her her class and her PhD program, and by me very much. And she can easily make friends, but that's her tendency, sort of when she gets really stressed out, is that sort of what do I do? I don't know which way to go. My tendency when I get really stressed out and freaked out is like, I can't solve it. I can't solve it, and the helplessness sort of kicks in. Something outside of me could solve it. That kind of idea. So those are all general strategies that people will come to in their sense of how the world is working. Do I trust myself? Do I feel the world can meet my needs? Do I feel that I can meet my needs, but I don't trust the world, which is the sort of dismissive borderline, can tend towards narcissism. The preoccupied self that doesn't trust themselves but does trust the world, and is always like looking like, well, are you my mommy? Are you my mommy? Kind of thing. And then the final one is someone who's sort of stuck between those. And the sort of joke that I've heard before is for actors, and they say in every audition, there's three positions, which is, and they're basically in a way describing these positions, except for the last one, which is a little too complex, but it says there's three positions that you can have when you go into an audition, which is like, are you my mommy? Screw you. And Let's Dance. And Let's Dance is the only one that works. And Let's Dance is basically the secure one. Like, hey, let's try to do this thing. Let's do it together. Let's see what happens. Let's experiment. Because if we experiment and something goes wrong, that's fine. I got a whole secure self I can rely on. But if I don't trust myself, then I need you to fix me. I need this audition in this case to go really well. Like, will you pick me, right? And people often smell that kind of desperation. Or you're like, I don't need you. Screw you. I'm just going to do my own thing. And actually, weirdly, those people are often quite attractive. But then when you get close to them, they like don't need you. So they just say, go away. Which is, if anyone, again, watched Mad Men, it's a great example of he just doesn't know how to have relationships, but he's very, very charismatic and, probably scores very high on the sociopathy scale, but is very alone. So hopefully, Chloe, that answers your question. Yes, we do need to have strong external relationships and to have internal peace. So part of what we're doing is healing our attachment relationship to the world. So hopefully that's of interest. Hopefully that's fun and interesting. Hey, we have some new folks here with us. Lil Vu, welcome. Windsock, good to see you again. Nice to have you here. Welcome, folks. So we're answering questions. If anyone has any questions, if anything's coming up, let me check my schedule to see I don't have any students coming in like the next few seconds. No, I'm okay for a little while. Any other questions, reports, general meditation questions, challenges, difficulties, good times, bad times? Should we just listen to Led Zeppelin? All right. Let's see. We have a couple messages here on Discord. I don't think, no, these are unrelated Discord questions. And just so folks know, I think I mentioned this to one of the classes that I was teaching. Our Discord, which if you don't know is just a sort of chatting platform, our Discord, there's just a channel there that you can go into, and it's just a voice channel. You can just hang out there, leave yourself plugged in there, and then someone else will wander in and be like, hey, what's up? And you can chat with a random person about meditation just by hanging out in the voice chat. So I find that really fun sometimes. Any other questions? Folks are having difficulties in your meditation. Nick says, that's really insightful and helpful on many levels. How are you not a therapist? Why not a book list? Yeah, book list is good. Do you know what's funny, though? I haven't found yet, even though this is a pretty popular topic, I haven't found yet a popular book that I like on attachment theory, which there has to be one out there. I've read a number of them, but I'm still just like not quite satisfied. But we'll see. A book that I really like about attachment theory and relationships, which if anyone is either in a relationship or wants to be in a relationship, that I recommend, is called Wired for Love. That book literally, and I know this sounds like kind of hyperbolic, it literally saved my relationship with Raquel. Our relationship would have ended were it not for the tools in this book, and actually meeting and talking to the author of that book was really helpful for Raquel and I. I'm not a therapist, in part because I don't want to be a therapist. Also in part because I don't really, I feel like I like studying this stuff, but I don't feel like going to, if I wanted to be a therapist, I'd have to go to school for 2 years and then get clinical hours for like another 2 years. And in the end, I could then sit down with people, talk with them about their problems one-on-one, give them tools that could help change their lives, and teach them about how to do meditation. I don't know if you noticed, that's exactly what I do already. So it's sort of like, I mean, I want tools, and I like the idea of training, but there's plenty of training that I can do and do. There's plenty of things that I do that help me, get supported in that way. So the point of it all is that I don't feel driven to do that. Awesome, Chloe. Thanks I'm glad you enjoyed that. Nick says, stay a professional non-pro. Exactly. So any other questions or reports, challenges, difficulties, good times, bad times? You know, it's funny. This was a while ago on the stream that we sat down. We're like, let's brainstorm ways that we can make the stream more interesting. And I was like, yeah. And unless Tomalin, I think it was before I even worked with you, Tomalin, unless Tomalin took notes on that, I do not remember any of those things. I have a vague sense of something, but I was like, no, maybe there's a game we're going to play. I don't know. Oh, I was going to ask, actually, if folks are here, I'd be curious from you, where do you think you land on that spectrum of those 4 things? Trust, have an innate sense of trust of self, innate trust of world, or any sort of combination thereof. I'd be curious if, when you're stressed, when you're like, things are going really bad, where do you tend to experience yourself on that spectrum? Let me know. Nick says, wow. Oof. Oh, thank you so much for the follow there. Maury912. Very nice to have you here with us. I hope we can be delightful and have fun together. Okay. Nick says, always wondering about grief, not having lost a person of great meaning in my life. So also had a rough breakup with a borderline GF. I have the exact same experience that involved the police. Weird coincidence. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how it goes. That's one of the ways it can go. We should swap stories on that one time. So let's see. Okay, Nick, see you soon. Great to see you. And not trusting self but world. So that would be on the preoccupied side. I have not noticed that. But it's also, listen, these are all normal things. These are all within the range of ordinary human experience. So, Maury, I'll explain the 4 things in just a second. But right now I'm asking, where do you fit on that spectrum? So here are the 4 things. We just described basically attachment theory. The 4 things are, 1, when you're stressed out, when you're really anxious or things are really hard, you have a sense that you can trust yourself and you can trust the world. The world will meet your needs. Or do you feel that you can trust yourself, but you can't trust the world? The world will not meet your needs, but you will do it. You have the power to do it. You can do it alone. Do you have a sense that you can't trust yourself? Like, I can't do it. I'm hopeless, but someone out there can. I just got to find the right person. Someone can help me. And that's the sort of more anxious, in a way you can think of it as a lean towards strategy, whereas the previous one was the lean away strategy. Like, I don't need you. I'll do it myself. And the third one is between the two, where you can't really trust yourself. You can't really trust the world. So you're sort of stuck. It's like, do I reach out? I don't know if I reach out. I can't really trust myself. And you're sort of stuck between those two. Trust yourself, not the world. Okay. Yeah. And that tends to be we talked about this before, and so this isn't judgmental because this is just sort of how we're wired. So all of this is natural. This is a normal response to the world, and we're talking about how it tends to stem from infancy, from ages 3 and below. That the tendency then is going to be that a person like that, and this may or not be your experience, but the tendency would be that you'd be very good at exploring, very good at sort of going out into the world and maybe even meeting people, but good at exploring, but have a hard time and a difficulty feeling comfortable sharing that with other people. And so a lot of the training there is to recognize sharing your experience with other people is actually valuable, versus people who feel that they can't do it, but the world, someone will solve their problem if they just, who will help? Their general teaching, their tendency is to recognize that they can trust the self, that they actually do have the power and strength to make their way in the world. So, yeah, let me know if anyone else has any thoughts on where they land on that spectrum. We're going to be ending the stream pretty soon, but I'll tell you what, we absolutely will be back here in less than 48 hours. Spiderclone, also known as Chloe. Okay. Chloe, I'm going to I just want to answer Maury's question real quick because that'll be a pretty brief one. By sharing experience, I mean, I was mentioning this before, human beings are built to they're hardwired to be in community with each other. Our current culture is, we talk about how we feel very disconnected, and, suicide is, in the United States, suicide just passed, it just became the second highest cause of death, more than AIDS, gun death, which gun death in America is pretty high. Like a lot of any of these, it's the second highest suicide. So it's so humans are pretty alienated from each other. So sharing experience means sharing experience. I just talked about what's happening for me. If I could hear what's happening for you, we're sharing an experience, talking to people, connecting, sitting down with people. Someone's having a tragedy or difficulty and we're with the person saying, hey, how are you doing, etc. I mean, we're wired as, people on a plane traveling 20 people together, and every death is a group tragedy. Every, celebration is a group celebration. And that's what our wiring still is, based on. And we have this world where we're pretty disconnected from each other. So we need to, have those types of connections. So Spiderclone says, the attachment theory thing seems like it's true for certain periods of time until a person can internalize skills. Yeah, absolutely. And it's also, it changes over time. And here's a really interesting, it changes completely based on the relationship we're in. So in a romantic relationship, you might be one way, but in a friendship relationship, you might be another. So for me, I have much better skills around romantic relationships than I do around interpersonal sort of horizontal friendship relationships. That's just my personal experience. So I think there is a tendency for psychological models and Buddhist psych models to claim full understanding. Absolutely, exactly correct. I like the idea that we can know all these models and choose where we want to go rather than be pigeonholed into certain categories. Yep. And what's natural can change, perhaps. Yeah, absolutely. And our experience of reality changes a lot. And ultimately, use the models that work. If a model doesn't work for us, we can abandon that and use the parts of models that work. I only use attachment theory as a model because I find that it helped me personally navigate the world. And, for people who tend to be on the preoccupied side, which again is my tendency, it was helpful to hear the sort of general characteristics and recognize, do I do this kind of thing? Something someone pointed out was, this is a long time ago, I sort of asking someone for real feedback, and they said, yeah, there's this sort of thing where you'll try to win the argument, not win the argument, win the discussion. And I was like, that's interesting. And he's like, yeah, it's sort of, that can be hard. And I noticed that I would be like, really want to be entertaining and really want to, and I would try to be like, oh, that's a good story, but listen to this. And I'd sort of try to one up people in this way. And looking back, it was a need to be the special one. I wanted to be the one that was liked and special. And that's really tiring for people. And recognizing that was really, really helpful for me. And now it's, conversations are much more of a ping pong match, much more chill. So for me, that's the case. But I really appreciate that, and that's really true. Any of these theories are just an overlay. The map is not the terrain. Okay, folks, so we're going to slide on into the next under 48 hours until we stream again here. We're going to be streaming again, focusing on new experiences, the process of new as it arises in the sensory field, the body mind. And so please feel free to email any questions. I can answer them in depth on the stream, or if you want to ask them on stream itself, you can. We'll also do some voice questions if people are into that. And we're going to go from there. So I'm going to start this outro, and you should be able to hear the music. I cannot hear the music. And it has the same... Okay, I'm going to start this outro. I'm actually going to change it while we're here. So I think you should still be able to hear me. I think so, and the music. Playing ping. What's the ping? I don't know what ping is. Maybe it's... yeah, what is that? Okay, I want to change this GIF because I've had the same GIF for... Oh, wait, no, I know where they are. I switched computers. Thanks for joining, Chloe. Great to have you here. Good to see you. Okay, I want to change this GIF because it's been the same. I had it because it was a winter, and I was like, yeah, winter sweaters, but I feel like it's been the same for too long, so I'm going to change that as we're sitting here with our outro. Thanks for joining, folks. As always, just the best to see you. What should we... Oh, I like this one. Okay, I'm going to change the gift to this. If you're still here, you're going to see this gift. Gift. Enough. Bye again. I know that sweet, sweet outro music. Okay, I'm going to have to pop this in. Oh, there it is. I like this GIF. There we go. That's a nice change. Yes. Oh, we missed the puppy. Oh, is it too late for the puppy? I think everyone's sliding away. Okay. Next week, or not next week, less than 48 hours from now on Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern, we will have the puppy. I promise we'll have the puppy. Wait, you like the old GIF better than this one? I like these because there's this thing of like how the plant is you. I think that's just really funny. Like you're a plant. I know we've been wanting to name our videos. We're actually going to start today. The music I used before Pong. What is Pong? Why am I missing this? The music I used before Pong. Is this a different music? Wait, I thought this was the... This should be the... Right, well, this is the music. I didn't think this was different. Oh! Okay, hold on. Sorry about that. That's my mistake. That was like a test thing we did for a minute. That's the wrong music. Thank you for that. I'm gonna pop that music out right now. Thanks for... And you're exactly right. We're gonna start naming them as of today. We've been sort of hesitating to do that. Yay, party. Okay, so, Tomlin, can you name things? Can you name things for us, or do I have to do it on my side? Let me know if that's the case. Outro vid. Where's that damn music? Okay, if you can name things, then I'll tell you what the name should be, and we can name this video as it appears on the YouTube. is the music? What is happening? Oh, looks like I don't have it on this computer. Anyway, yeah. No, definitely this is the wrong music. Okay, great. So I think the title for this one is going to be meditating on new and grief. Meditating on new, part 1, and dealing with grief without alcohol. That'll be the name. And maybe also you'll put in parentheses and attachment theory types. Or maybe actually, maybe it'll be what attachment theory, what attachment strategy do you use? Let me know if that's clear, if it's like a mess. Okay, I'm surprised some people are still here. Welcome. So thanks for sticking around, folks, for this while we're actually fixing the stream, while the stream is ending. It's so funny, I can't actually find the music. Yeah, I want to include also like since it has a lot in the stream, we'll do all 3 of those. We'll just have all 3. Oh, I'm glad we kept you company there. Good times. I'm new to PC, but I'm searching for MP3, and it's like a million things that are like MP3 mod.dll. It's like, just give me the goddamn music files. I know, that's what I searched. That's exactly what I searched. Okay, I think I know where they are. I found them. No, whatever. Oh, I found the one, but that's not the... That's not the right song. Wait, I thought that was the right song, actually. Wasn't this my old outro song? No, that's the Q&A song. That's the song I did for Q&A. Okay. I think I should end the stream because I'm just sitting here doing tech stuff, fixing stuff. Okay, folks. I'm ending the stream. Great to see you. Hope to see you soon. Have fun. Meditate your butt off. And I'll see you